My name is Emily. I was 47 years old when my world shifted in ways I never imagined, pulling me into a whirlwind of emotions I thought I'd buried long ago. For over 5 long, lonely years, I had made a life for myself in our modest cottage on the outskirts of the village. The roof leaked during heavy rains, the wooden floors creaked with every step, and the evenings stretched out endlessly, filled only with the distant hum of crickets and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. My husband, Robert, had vanished one stormy afternoon after a heated argument that left scars deeper than words could describe. He claimed he needed space to find himself, but that space turned into an abyss. I held on, clinging to hope like a lifeline, even as friends and family urged me to let go and start anew. Each morning, I'd rise with the first light of dawn, brewing a single pot of tea instead of the strong coffee we used to share. His worn leather jacket still hung in the closet, gathering dust, and I tended to the herb garden he had planted with such care, watching the rosemary and lavender thrive despite his absence. In the afternoons, I'd wander the nearby woods, picking wildflowers to brighten the empty rooms, and at night, I'd curl up with a book under the dim lamp, pretending the silence didn't echo with memories of his laughter. Neighbors saw me as resilient, a quiet pillar of strength, but inside, my soul felt weary, frayed at the edges from the constant ache of abandonment. I still loved him fiercely, irrationally, even as the months blurred into years, even as the weight of solitude pressed down like an unyielding fog. But everything shattered the evening. I glimpsed a silhouette lingering by the old oak tree in the yard. Broad-shouldered figure that stirred. Forgotten instincts in my chest. My pulse raced, my fingers gripping the curtain so tightly they turned white. It couldn't be. Yet, when the knock came, 3 hesitant raps on the door, I knew. I approached slowly, my heart thundering like a trapped bird, and pulled the door open to reveal him. Robert, aged beyond his years, his once vibrant face lined with exhaustion, his frame leaner from whatever trials he'd endured. "Emily," he murmured, his voice gravelly, as if scraped raw by time and regret. I stood frozen, a storm brewing in my veins. "What are you doing here, Robert? After all this time, I had to come back. I missed you. Us." His eyes, those deep brown pools I'd drowned in so many times, now held shadows I didn't recognize. Stories of roads traveled alone, perhaps mistakes he couldn't undo. Anger surged through me like wildfire, mingling with the reluctant spark of the old affection I'd tried so hard to extinguish. I wanted to scream, to demand answers for the endless nights I'd spent staring at the ceiling, wondering if he was alive or if he'd simply erased me from his life. But instead, I stepped aside, letting him in, the door creaking like a reluctant confession. We settled at the worn oak table in the kitchen, the one where we'd shared countless meals and dreams. He glanced around, taking in the faded wallpaper, the chipped plates on the shelf, the vase of dried flowers I'd preserved from our last anniversary. "You've kept it all just as it was," he said softly, almost in awe. "It's my home," I replied curtly, pouring us tea with hands that barely steadied. Habits die hard. Silence enveloped us, thick and uncomfortable, broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. A wedding gift from his parents that had outlasted our vows. Finally, he broke it. I'm so sorry, Emily, for everything. Sorry? The word hung in the air, inadequate against the years of pain. Sorry for walking out? For vanishing without a trace? For leaving me to wonder if you were dead or just done with me? My voice rose, cracking at the edges. He bowed his head, his fingers tracing invisible patterns on the table. For abandoning you, I was lost, drowning in my own fears, my failures at work, the pressure of it all. I thought leaving would fix me, but it only broke everything more. Tears welled in my eyes, hot and unwelcome. I wiped them away furiously, refusing to let him see my vulnerability so easily. You didn't even send a letter, Robert. Not a single word. I grieved you like a widow, but you were out there, alive, choosing silence. He reached across the table, his hand hovering near mine, but I recoiled, as if burned. Don't, I whispered fiercely. You lost that right years ago. He withdrew, nodding with a resigned sigh, his shoulders slumping under the weight of my rejection. I understand, but I came back because I realized what a fool I was. Maybe we could rebuild, start over. Those words, they were the ones I'd whispered to myself in the darkest hours, the fantasy that kept me going. But hearing them now, they rang hollow like echoes in an empty room. Why now? I pressed, my voice steadier than I felt. After 5 years of nothing? I've changed, he said, his gaze pleading. Therapy, time alone, it made me see how much I needed you, how much I still love you. I closed my eyes, the room spinning with conflicting emotions, the pull of nostalgia, the sting of betrayal, the quiet strength I'd forged in his absence. That night, I lay awake, replaying our conversation, the what-ifs tangling like vines in my mind. The following weeks unfolded in a surreal haze. Robert stayed in the spare bedroom, its walls adorned with faded photographs of happier times. We fell into a tentative routine, shared breakfasts of toast and jam, walks along the winding path by the river where we'd once picnicked, evenings spent reading by the fire. We spoke of trivialities, the unusually warm autumn, the gossip from the village market, the way the stars seemed brighter this year. But beneath the surface, civility lurked an undercurrent of unspoken hurts, like cracks in ice waiting to give way. One crisp afternoon, as we raked leaves in the yard, he paused and said, I miss the way you used to hum while cooking. Your voice always filled the house with warmth. I stopped, leaning on my rake, the autumn sun casting long shadows across the grass. I don't hum much anymore, Robert. The house felt too empty for songs. He set his rake aside and sat on the stone wall, his expression pained. I know I shattered that, shattered us. But can't we mend it? I've dreamed of this, of coming home to you. My chest tightened, a mix of sorrow and resolve. You didn't just leave, Robert. You erased me from your life. I waited, hoped, prayed. I rebuilt myself piece by piece, learning to fix the leaky faucet alone, celebrating birthdays with friends instead of you, finding solace in the quiet I once feared. He looked away toward the horizon where the sun dipped low. I was scared of failing you, of not being enough, but now I want to try. That evening, over a simple dinner of stew I'd simmered all day, the dam broke. You broke my trust, I said, my fork clattering against the plate. And trust isn't like a vase you can glue back together. The cracks always show. Tears glistened in his eyes, a vulnerability I'd rarely seen in our marriage. Emily, please, one more chance. I wanted to yield, to fall back into the familiar rhythm of us. But as I stared at him, I saw not just the man I loved, but the ghost of the pain he'd inflicted. The next morning, I rose early and slipped out to the garden. The dew-kissed earth cool under my feet. Birds sang overhead, and the flowers bloomed vibrantly, a testament to the life I'd nurtured without him. In that moment, clarity washed over me like a gentle rain. I had survived, thrived even in the solitude that once terrified me. I'd discovered strengths I never knew, painting watercolors that captured the village's charm, volunteering at the local library, forging bonds with neighbors who became like family. When Robert joined me, carrying 2 mugs of tea, he asked softly, "What's on your mind?" I met his gaze evenly, no longer trembling. That love can fade and reignite, but some wounds heal into scars that change us forever. He nodded, sensing the finality in my words. "I've hurt you beyond repair." "Yes," I admitted, my voice soft but firm. "And you've returned to a woman who's learned to stand on her own." We lingered on the weathered bench he'd carved during our first year together. The wood smoothed by time and touch. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of impending winter. For a fleeting instant, it felt like we were young again, full of promise. But reality intruded, gentle yet insistent. "Do you resent me?" he whispered. "No," I replied honestly. "I've forgiven you in my way. But our paths diverged long ago. I don't fit into your life anymore, and you no longer fit into mine." The wind whispered through the branches as if affirming my resolve. He rose slowly, his movements heavy with defeat. "If you ever reconsider—" "I won't," I said kindly, standing to face him. "Oh, but I wish you healing, Robert, truly." A bittersweet smile crossed his lips. "You were my anchor, Emily, my everything. Then why let go?" The question hung unanswered, a final thread severed. He made his way to the gate, pausing once to look back, his eyes brimming with unspoken farewells. "Goodbye, Emily. Goodbye, Robert." As the latch clicked shut, a profound sense of liberation bloomed within me, not triumphant, but serene. I'd spent years tethered to the hope of his return, but the Emily he found was transformed, resilient, whole. In the quiet that followed, I realized a profound truth. Sometimes love circles back, only to reveal that the heart has evolved beyond it. And in that evolution lies freedom. That night, with the stars twinkling overhead and the house enveloping me in familiar comfort, I embraced the lesson fully. Some reunions arrive too late, but they grant closure all the same, allowing us to step forward unburdened. What would you do if you were in my place? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to English Easy Voice for more heartfelt tales and life lessons.